Brothers and sisters, as we think about the remarkable institutions built by our beloved Swami, we remember them as temples of healing, or as temples of love, or as temples of excellence in whatever they have to offer. We remember them as Swami's compassion to all of humanity. And we also remember all those noble instruments who participated in whatever way to ensure that these institutions finally saw the light of day. Today it is indeed an honor to welcome and introduce one such noble instrument, Dr. A. Ramakrishna. He is the director of the Sri Sathya Sai World Foundation, and he formerly served as the president and deputy managing director of Larsen & Toubro, L&T, one of the largest construction companies in the world. What he is remembered for most is the fact that our beloved Swami entrusted to L&T under his able guidance the task of building many institutions, including the super speciality hospitals of Puttaparthi and Whitefield, the International Sports Center in Puttaparthi, the Chaitanya Jyoti Museum in Puttaparthi, and of course the Sai Kulwant Hall and the water projects in Anantapur, other parts of Andhra Pradesh and Chennai. And it all started with the construction of that 65 feet Hanuman statue on top of the hills overlooking the Hillview Stadium. He's here to narrate his inspiring experience of being part of this and how through God's grace and human effort these things finally came to benefit all of mankind. He's accompanied by his wife. I request you to join me in giving a very loving welcome to them. Sairam.
With offering myself at the feet of Swami, I would like to narrate a few experiences to fellow devotees who I am sure must have had similar and probably equally inspiring experiences. Of course, this requires a little introduction so that you see it in a perspective. I have been working as a structural and civil engineer in Larsen & Toubro Limited, which when I started my career has had probably a turnover of something like $2 million. That's all. And it has now grown to be a $12 billion company, having had such an experience in various fields of construction. I believe, because of my experience for 43 years with this company, that all that has happened is of course due to a lot of human effort, strategic planning, technology development, human resource development, material management, and so many other things management gurus will talk about. But I feel it is mainly due to God's grace. And I have that experience to narrate a few instances which I think should convince you in a normal life of a person, an engineer who is quite normal, nothing extraordinary in the spiritual terms, how it can create an influence that is everlasting and beneficial not only to one himself but also to many others who participated in this effort of Swami. Swami has of course a lot more things to do just other than these projects which we have been associated, but he has led us to do very successful projects in a way which looks like normal project work, but extraordinary timing in terms of completion of projects, extraordinary cost, low cost, and extraordinary way everyone works together, and extraordinary way of project management. I have learned through these projects, which again applied in my other projects in the company, and it has shown unbelievable results for the company. We have grown, I told you, phenomenally, and for no less measure due to God's grace than all the effort put by various colleagues of mine in Larsen & Toubro. The journey began for me really only in 1990, even though I heard about Swami through our relations. I hail from Andhra Pradesh, and I have some distant relations who had very close contact with Swami. In fact, Swami visited their homes, and one of the ladies with whom we are related, she narrated a story. She constructed a new house and invited Swami for Graha Pravesham and inaugurating the building. And Swami said, there is no tape, no scissors. What, Subbulama, you have brought me here without any preparation. And she said quite jocularly, in those days he was so close to all those devotees, I just called you to see your Mahima, what you can do. You show me your Mahima. Then he just produced a tape across the main door, produced the scissors, cut himself, and opened the house and said, you can enter this house. So those type of stories I heard. There are other relations living in Madras. I have lived all my life, professional life, mostly in Madras. So I used to hear that he used to come and stay in house of one Mr. V. Hanumantarao. Some of you may know, he was a government official of a high position. He used to live there whenever he used to visit Madras, because it was a composite state, and he used to visit Madras often. And from them also I used to hear stories. My wife had the opportunity to visit that house and have darshan of Swami during those visits, but I was always busy with my work. I have not had that darshan. And in 1990, he came to have a 4-day program in Madras at a place called Abbotsbury, where today we have a Hyatt Hotel. That place, there were programs going on, and bhajans and Swami speeches and all that. And one evening, I was invited for dinner by V. Srinivasan, who is All India President of the Seva organizations. And I went thinking it is a normal evening dinner, and went with a colorful shirt and participated in the dinner. So many round tables, and Swami came round and visited people around me in that table and spent some time with me. Then he greeted me and told me, and then he said, I have some work for you, come to Puttaparthi. That's all, the first encounter. Then I attended, of course, the lectures. Then very soon I happened to go to Puttaparthi with my wife, and after reaching Puttaparthi with a roundabout route, we didn't know the real correct route. I took a car and reached at 1:30 a.m. Even at 1:30 a.m., I was very well received, and we had a comfortable night's sleep. And next day morning, we were invited to wait at the veranda, and Swami came and took me and my wife inside the room. And then the real story started for me. And the effect of Swami's grace was reflected in the various projects I was to later on undertake under his guidance. So he greeted me, and then the way he spoke to me, I could easily see he knew everything. He told about my family without my telling or anybody telling. Without anybody knowing some of those things, he told so many things which is unbelievable. That proves that he has got extraordinary powers like a god. And then he told me, after so many births, ultimately you have come to me, I am very, very happy. So he started that way, and then he produced, of course, some ring and some chain for my wife, and of course we are thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And then somebody came into the room, another person for interview. And so then he introduced him to me and said he wants to construct a Hanuman statue on the top of the hill. And then he said, it is quite big on the top of the hill, it is difficult to construct, that's why I am trying to entrust this work to you and your company. Then he produced, materialized a statue of Hanuman, the way the statue should look. He produced that in colorful, a pose with a hill being carried by Hanuman. And then he said, now you construct. And then no contract, no price, nothing. And then that's how it started. And the other gentleman who was there, we both went to one Colonel Jogarao, who manages Swami's constructions at that time. And then he told how it has to be organized. We didn't talk about price or anything. Then we went to Madras, designed that statue, which is supposed to be 65 feet high, to coincide with 65 years, 65th birthday of Swami. So it is a huge statue. So it has a lot of load, and we have to, and then a lot of wind coming. So you have to design structurally. And we designed that in the office, and then I came back to Swami with the drawing. And inside, to make it stay, we have to put steel structure inside, steel reinforcement in a way. And then I showed Swami and told, Swami, this just looks like the bone structure of a human being. We are trying to design something, and we realize that the bones God has designed is exactly the right solution. And we are only trying to find that solution for material objects. And then he saw that and gave some ideas further. That shows how much knowledge he has got. So one day I was surprised at his knowledge, giving some hints for the engineers. And then I was looking at him and wondering. Then Swami understood what I am thinking. And then he said, you are wondering how I know all this. Then he said, yes, I was born just like anybody else. But once God's grace falls and God realization comes, or even God's grace falls on somebody, all this knowledge you take so much effort to study and mug up and try to retain, all that comes in a flash. It doesn't take any time. So it requires God's grace. And some others, some are brilliant, some are not so brilliant. All this is God's grace. Some may be good in something, somebody else may be good at something else. So he said, in everyone, there is God. Inside, you have to look inside for that. The same God lives in every creature. And he explained in a simple way for me to understand all that essence of life. Then he told, now you have got this task and go ahead and complete that. And so we brought in some special scaffolding to be hauled up to the hill and completed the job. Ultimately, the Sthapatis did the intricate sculptural work in a way, and it came to a beautiful shape with all the colors that is required. We created an artificial waterfall. So while designing this, we found that the hill was so heavy, the hand could not carry, because there are no muscles in that. We have only material. Then we found how to, there is a Angavastram. So in the Angavastram, we have put some more reinforcement, and it was stable. So that is the story of the Hanuman statue. That's how our construction work started. And really we were called because so much of accommodation is required for especially devotees coming from abroad and from India all over, and they have to stay for a short while. It has to be of a certain type. And so he asked me to make some designs and come with proposals. I went with like our 5-star hotels, rooms on either side, central corridor, and like that I took to him. He said, no, the corridor should be open. It should be outside. And the room should be of like this. And then he described all that requirement is and how economically and fast we can construct. So then the clarity came, and then we produced the other drawings and gave him for his approval. And within 3 months, the first set of those blocks were ready using a new method called shear wall construction. And in a way, I was experimenting, already tried out in the West, those methods in India without brickwork, only concrete walls, and do very fast construction. Practically in that type of construction we have done alternate day one floor. I mean, this is technology which we wanted to introduce. Swami gave us the opportunity in the housing blocks we built and later on repeated in many other projects. Later on, even for general housing purposes. And we became a great success in, you can say, system housing, we call it. So a large-scale operation and building of housing at low cost. And this method brings 20% saving in steel and 5% saving in cement. And of course, manpower is much less because it's built very fast and it is most economical. But it can be done only if there's a lot of repetition. It cannot be built only for one house. So in a way, he has led me to think in those directions for the mass of humanity that India has to provide housing for. So in a way, it's a lesson for me in my profession as well, even though I just did some simple housing in Puttaparthi. Then later on, the hospitals, that is super speciality hospital, was a fantastic job. And that itself is a story. I'll explain a little later. But maybe I will finish in brief, but I'll show you pictures later. This whole thing started with a discussion. Swami called Mr. Isaac Tigret, some of you must have heard. He's from the United States. Mr. James Sinclair. They contributed money and certain other effort. And one Dr. Keith Critchlow, who is an architect for Buckingham Palace. He was drafted in. And Swami directed them how the hospital should be. This hospital is unlike any other hospital. It is for poor and cardiac and special surgeries, and it will be free of cost. But it should be the best hospital anywhere in the world. That is all the specification. Then is Mr. Isaac Tigret and other of his colleagues assembled some consultants internationally and were working with us to formulate the design. In the meantime, the architect prepared the drawings, and the first 4 months, Swami declared this in one birthday and said the next birthday it will be inaugurated and operations will be performed. 4 months, nothing happened. We were only talking and discussing and trying to find out a way. So then, to change course, this is a lesson for us in management as well. He called for a meeting and then told Dr. Keith Critchlow, you have made a fantastic design. You almost made like another Buckingham Palace. Give the drawings to Ramakrishna. Then he handed over. Then he told Isaac Tigret and others, you brought all new ideas, how modern this hospital should be, or how this sewage treatment, waste treatment, and other things which are modern and equipment have to be assembled. He did all that and praised them to skies. He said, you have done your job, now your job is finished. Give all those drawings to Ramakrishna. Now it is for Larsen and Toubro to finish the job. Then it was such a big load on my heart, I was wondering what to do and what to say. Then I said, Swami, we will try. Not we will try, you will finish. I assure you, I am with you, you will finish. And that is the type of confidence he has given. Then we had to find an interior architect who knows operation theatres, equipment that comes in, apart from just construction, The construction is one part, but it has to be functional. So with a little search, we found out, to Swami's gaze, one gentleman by name, Mr. Thomas Rajan. Thomas Rajan is an architect who has worked in Apollo hospitals, worked with doctors, and then he knows the intricate details of how the air conditioning all the electrical connections, so many other details in an operation theatre and a hospital are required. So he has to do the planning along with our engineers and do all the detailed engineering and drawings. So then when I found him, naturally I took him to Swami to get his blessings to make the progress that fast. So when he was taken into the interview room and he was greeted, Swami blessed him very well, and then he materialized a ring which had Om on the top of it. And then he put it on his finger and he was smiling. This gentleman is Thomas Rajan, a Christian. And he then smiled and said, "You are a Christian, I know. Give it back to me." He blew some air on that and it became a cross. So he gave it back to him. So he is flabbergasted. He could not imagine all that. And then he started discussing some of his personal problems. His family had some problems. And Swami assured so many things. And he was absolutely thrilled and tears were flowing down his cheeks. And he assured Swami, "I will do all that I can do for this hospital." And then half our job is done. So that's how Swami helps. And then he worked very closely with our engineers. Engineering was going on one side, construction on one side. The way we try to plan and do is an example for us how to do complex projects in a fast track. In a way, we learned project management and certain aspects of engineering as well. And we went on working hard, 3,500 people, a lot of equipment. Everything was there, but then it is too short a time. And as we are nearing completion, rain started pouring, and every time we used to worry about it, we used to go to Swami and said, "Swami, rains are coming." "Don't worry." He used to assure us, and we went on constructing even within rain for some time. Then ultimately, we came quite close. Then I knew I was sitting there the last month most of the time, and told Swami, "Everything is getting finished, but I don't think I can clean up the hospital to be a septic and all that." Then he said, "Don't worry, it will be. I will send some people to help you." So he sent all the Sevadal, 500 people, and in a flash, in 2 days, everything was spick and span and clean like anything. And then the last minute, we had to erect a chandelier in the central dome, which is donated by an Italian devotee. And the way it has to be erected inside the dome was a problem. And anyway, we found the solutions for that. And it was ready. And the next day morning, the Prime Minister, Narasimha Rao, inaugurated the hospital. Operations were performed. It's highly successful. And then there is a function that day. The Dr. Venugopal, who was the specialist from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Isaac Tigret, myself and few others were honored with mementos, and we all felt happy. But I know, heart of hearts, that was not a project constructed by Larsen & Toubro alone. There is God's grace. So when all management theories tell about planning, monitoring, personal management, material management, just in time, all such things. But they never tell God's grace is required. But I experience, and I can say confidently, all that is required, but still without God's grace, it cannot happen. Anything cannot be built fast. And that is what we experienced, and that hospital led to a lot of hospital jobs for us in the rest of for the company as such. And we built the Whitefield Hospital later on with a lot of experience gained here, and we could finish that hospital as well in 11 months, and in 2 months, 2 months later, it was completely operational. So that is a little story about the hospital, because that's a typical story of all our projects. Everywhere some obstructions came and Swami was clearing all the obstructions. So I will tell that with some pictures later on. But what essentially Swami was conveying is that he knows everything. Any problem he can solve. We go to with the problem and solution is found. He doesn't have books, nothing. He doesn't refer anything. Everything is in his can describe, and he used to find solutions for us, for ultimately his objectives of creating facilities for common human beings at no cost or low cost is achieved. Similar projects were done, huge projects, for example, the water supply project for Anantapur district. Actually, I was associated with a colleague, former engineering chief of Andhra Pradesh government, Sri Kondal Rao. His son is here, his daughter-in-law is here. How that project has gone on, I have a presentation to show you to help understand a little bit of how it went about. We went about. All these 20 years, I was busy like anything normally. And fortunately, it so happened that the company has also provided an aircraft for my use. So I used to travel all over. All the neighboring countries also we were doing work, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and Indian subcontinent, excluding Pakistan. All these countries we were working. So you can imagine I have been busy. And whenever Swami wanted, it so used to happen that everything will fall in place as though he's controlling it. Board meetings will get shifted a few days, and I would come whenever Swami wants me. I have only experience, so I can say that this is not normal. It is due to Swami's grace that all these things happened, and I never felt tired or anything. It was going on very smoothly. So many people were working for me, for us in the company, and everyone had such a devotion and such an attitude which is totally different from what it happens in other project sites. And that is the difference. That what he used to say is unity, purity, and divinity add to success of any project. So we have experienced that everybody connected with a project have to work together. And if there is a common cause and a pure cause, and everybody is working towards that cause, including the designers, consultants, architects, suppliers, subcontractors, then of course owners, representatives, government, public, the society, and the people who are constructing, all have to work together. That is where problems come in a project is done by the government agencies. It doesn't work together. Somewhere the fights are there and there will be court cases and nothing moves. But when everybody works together with purity and unity, divinity almost always supports in such a way that the project is a success. And all Swami's projects, both for those jobs for this Swami's projects, but even for those jobs which are doing for outside, I used to discuss with him. One stadium in Madras, Jayalalitha was chief minister at that time. They delayed 4 years and finally decided in the next 9 months the stadium should be ready. And somebody told the chief secretary, probably only L&T can do this. And he went and told, Madam, the only possibility is we'll call L&T. And he said, call them. And we went and talked. Then I told Madam, normally even for a tender it takes 4 months. Within 2 weeks, we'll produce all the designs and drawings and bill of quantities and estimate. Within 2 weeks. But within 1 week thereafter, your government officials, engineers should sit and approve that and then approve the rates with which we can construct. If that can happen, then we will take up the job. And if you can finish in 2 weeks, yes, I think I will tell our chief engineers to form a committee, discuss with you all and give you the approval. Then I said, Madam, we cannot approach so many departments in the government. Please make one secretary in charge and we'll deal with him. Wherever it's required, we will pay officially. There won't be anything, but then we want coordinating one secretary. And she agreed. And ultimately, we finished that stadium of 45,000 capacity with television facilities, track, football grass and everything within 260 days without accidents in a fantastic way. Swami visited the site. It's not that he is restricting himself to the project he is ordering us to do. He has taken an interest in everything we do. And he used to predict and tell me, this is, yes, here you will have a problem, but I'll help you to solve it. And there's one project we built in Russia for the Russian soldiers coming back from Germany after German unification. They had to create 50 townships to house them. That itself is a big story. The contract is in German and Russian language. We all speak English. Fortunately, I had my earlier training in Germany, so I knew a little German, but the whole lot has to be organized with translators and the whole lot, and we got a contract. And this he told me in advance, you will not make money, you lose some money. And it happened. But in those difficulties, how we can come out, because our people have gone and have to work in minus 20 degrees centigrade temperature, and winds blowing. Our people can't stand for 5 minutes. How can they work? So that was a basic mistake in imagining we have made. Then we have to change the whole lot, employ some subcontractors from Bulgaria, Turkey, Russia, and anyway, we managed and finished the job. And we had some claims, and ultimately we managed to make the loss a little less. Ultimately, but we have gained a lot in international operations, that we can build in totally different environment with different type of pressures. And we have learned the art of project management to build very fast. That was a job built, whole township, including housing, hospitals, clinics, shops, roads, hot water supply, everything for a town, including telecommunication. Everything was built in 18 months by an Indian company working in Russia for German drawings. It's not possible, but for Swami's grace again. And what I want to convey to you is, there's nothing which is beyond Swami. And we have experience in our limited sphere of activity, which is anyway supposed to be very difficult. There's a proverb in Telugu as well as Tamil to say, you construct a house and perform a wedding. These are difficult. And I think construction is supposed to be very difficult to manage. And Swami taught us how to manage construction projects very efficiently, economically, and aesthetically beautiful, and ultimately bringing happiness to everyone. So with this as a background, I'd like to show you some slides and explain with some pictures. And I have not talked about any spirituality. Swami has demonstrated to us that service to man is service to God. You perform service, and that's what most of the organizations in the various countries are doing. That is as good as Namasmaranam or Bhakti or other ways are there, but doing the work and service and doing your own duties is a right way to reach God. And that is what we learned, and I thought these few examples will illustrate to you how it helped us in achieving what looked humanly not easy, at least. So. Hi. Since Sathya brings safe water to 1 million people, drought-stricken poor in India. So this is the little story about the Anantapur district. 750 villages were given pure drinking water by Swami at, of course, no cost to them. But Swami spent a lot of money on this. Can we move this? That's fine. This is the vision as stated by Swami. I think you can easily see. He wants to bring water for the poor in Anantapur district. I think this. So, Anantapur district is chronically water-starved, and Swami is a young boy. As a young boy, carried water from sources. It's okay. And actually, he promised his mother when she requested that all villagers should be given water, drinking water, and that is what he took up as to fulfill the promise to his mother. And some of the villages, water contains harmful substances, including fluorides, arsenic, and others, and therefore there are a lot of diseases. Sorry, sir. So, Bhagavan's vision, everyone, especially the poor, should get daily drinking water from a short distance instead of 5 kilometers they walk every time. Normally, a country's population needs 1,000 cubic meters of water per year. Of this, 85% is for irrigation to produce food grains. The balance 15% is intended for drinking water and human consumption. The city water supply schemes, this is not so important for you. 200 liters per capita per day water is required in any place, and so we calculated 50 liters per capita is required. 50 liters per capita is required as drinking water, and on that basis, with 25% increase for future, we designed this project. And so this picture shows this girl and his family and her family have to go a long distance to fetch water, because it is otherwise not possible. 5 to 6 kilometers they have to walk, and 1 billion people have to be provided water in 18 months. And the cost was entirely borne by Sathya Trust, which is approximately $69 million at that time equivalent. But actually, if you see in the commercial purposes, this would have been much higher, 2 to 3 times. But what Swami brought about in this project is unique partnership with the state government, local communities, and the executing agency like Larsen and Toubro, and the various people involved, including pipe suppliers and all that. And it should be sustained over 10 years. And this is what the project vision is. I think all these details are not so important. I'll show some pictures. This is the scene of a typical village at that time. People were having such diseases because of pollution of water, and it's a dry area, and water is absolutely essential. And the government was not able to solve this problem of providing for the last 20 years, as told by Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. Narasimha Rao said, I was district minister in Andhra Pradesh, and we could not manage this project because the source of water, how to make this project is all quite complex. It is 19,000 square kilometers, 731 villages, 1.25 million people, 16 million liters per day, and $70 million approximately is the cost. And various alternatives were thought about. The first is to get through infiltration wells, as you see here, through what is called intake well, and draw water and pump. Then summer storage tanks. For 97 villages, we have built storage tanks so that in summer they have water, and store it in the rainy season, and when you get water. Some of these tanks are 100 acres in size. And 93 villages will have with a balancing reservoir, and some places with bore wells with protected water supply, of course, after filtration and treatment. So we had 4 different schemes to undertake this work. And all this, the scheme planning was done by Mr. Kondal Rao, engineer-in-chief. So when this project was taken up, the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh then was Mr. N.T. Ramarao. He came and called on Swami. Then Swami, when he was happy that Swami is prepared to spend so much money for making this project, he said, Swami, you give the money to me and we will get it done. Then said, 20 years you are not done. So how can I be sure that you will get it done? So I will get it done and hand it over to you, to your government, and you get it, you manage it afterwards to run the projects. Then N.T. Ramarao was satisfied and he went back. And then he said, but depute one gentleman whom I will choose as in charge for this project from government side. And that is Mr. Kondal Rao. And his son is here. So he was chosen. He made the entire master plan for this with 731 villages. And of course the principle is, of course, from water source, you take the water, then you aerate it, then clariflocculator, then filtering, then clear water sumps, and then of course pump houses, then overhead water reservoirs, then distribute it through cisterns. That is the scheme. And that has to happen in different villages. And the whole scheme involved absolutely large-scale work. So we had to use 3,500 men, 60 excavators, vast area project operation. We had never done something like that before. We have built big tanks, we have built pipelines, but not like this. So all this we have also learned. And this type of water tanks, we have designed specifically for this project with a shaft, with a shaft and a tank, and some are much taller. All this was done specifically designed for this project, and whatever engineering was done by L&T was checked by the government through Mr. Kondal Rao and his colleagues. So this is the type of pipelines. There is no way to reach the place. We have to create roads and create these pipelines. 2,500 kilometers of main lines, another 1,500 kilometers of distribution lines. So you can see the terrain. And this is the type of water tanks we used as a standard design, because we have to build 275 overhead reservoirs. We have never built even 50 of them before. 275 in 1 year's time. 25 large summer storage tanks. Then 1,000 concrete cisterns, slow sand filters, water treatment plant. All this was organized, and there were plenty of problems on the way. And whenever there is a problem, we used to go and sit at in Sai Kulwant Hall at one corner. Swami will come and say, what is the problem? Then he will tell us a solution, or he will create a magic in a way to ultimately make it happen. So the way it was financed, the way the project management was done, all that is an example for future projects. That's what Swami said also. He said, we'll create an example how it can be done, and with no money for the government. All this is happening with trust money or some donations. So all these aspects, government support in planning and approach, EPC contractor with service motive. Not all contractors will work like us. We said in our board that corporate social responsibility, we always give some donations to some organizations. So I presented to the board, instead of doing that for this type of projects, we would like to work and show how these things can be created at a low cost, work for at cost or slightly lower than the cost, in such a way we participate in it. And that the board agreed, and so many, about 5% of the projects we are ready to do like that. Formation of an autonomous board for operation and management. Ultimately the government was asked to take over. They said, we don't know how to run this. Then Swami said, okay, we'll form a little board, and ultimately it was entrusted to Larsen and Toubro. We trained the local people. There are 240 villagers who can now manage, and who are managing actually, but we are there to guide them. So training of local people, all this has happened in such an exemplary way, in such a short time. This is a cistern where people can collect at the tap, and within 30-40 meters to their home they can carry water. So these are some pump houses. The operation and maintenance was also done by L&T. We had only one problem, that too after 5 or 6 years. All these 240 villagers who have been trained formed into a union and said, now we must be employed by the government as permanent employees. The government said, no, it is not government service, we don't do such things. Then they said, at least Larsen and Toubro. Then Larsen and Toubro said, we are in a contract every year for the operation and maintenance, only guidance, we can take them. So ultimately it was a big problem for the government as well, and they understand. Then they brought everyone together and brought them to Swami. And Swami explained, this is all for you, otherwise water won't come afterwards. So you all work together, you are getting all the salary, you can continuously work for 30 years, it's all permanent. Why do you worry like that? He has assured some of them, and it started functioning smoothly afterwards. So this girl is a typical example. She has started going to school. Mother started working on some things because she has free time instead of fetching water. So the whole scenario has changed. It has helped in achieving minimum, there is Millennium Human Development Goals for Government of India. And this has become a project as an example for showing how it can be done in other parts of India. It so happened we went on doing similar projects in many states, and it became a big project line, a sort of diversification for us, and we have succeeded very well in contributing to bringing drinking water to poor people, practically at no cost. So these are all something it is replicable. It was repeated in other districts as well. So, for example, Mahbub Nagar district, Anantapur first, Mahbub Nagar, Medak, and then Godavari districts, West and East Godavari. Then later on for Chennai city, which has got 7 million population. It's a huge population, they are always water starved. And there is a river called Krishna in neighboring state of Andhra Pradesh. There was an agreement between the 3 chief ministers to bring that Krishna water, contributing 5 million TMC of water, 1,000 million cubic foot. Every state has contributed for Chennai to get the water. The source is assured, but the project was built and no water was coming in the canal because it was poorly executed. And then Swami one day, when he inaugurated the hospital at Whitefield in Bangalore, announced people in Madras are suffering without water. They are drinking water from all pools which are polluted water, and they will become sick. So I want to help them. And he told the government of Andhra Pradesh and government of Tamil Nadu that this work can be taken up. And he spent all the money, and we did a massive job, 160 kilometers of canal, of which about 60 kilometers was concrete lined, and some dam was repaired, and a lot of technical details are involved. But what I can say is, we have to ask for 4 different cement factories to supply cement, because that production of concrete was so much that we consume cement in such a massive scale. All these cement factories, all the people associated worked with collaboration and cooperation, and the project is a great success. I am not discussing those points which I meant for management students in Sathya Sai Institute. Swami wanted me to talk to them about how these projects have been managed and what are the aspects in management, SWOT analysis. These are all management language. But these are a few pictures. You can see them. This is how, in one of the villages where there are tribals in East Godavari district, to get land within forest area is a hell of a problem. You can't cut a tree, government permission is needed. And so finally, one of those poor women said, take my land. She has 5 acres of land, old lady. This is going to help all of us. And that area is infested with some sort of communists. As a donation. I mean, rich acres of land, and she donated that. So This is one of the examples of a complex project. And when we were laying these pipelines, some of them with fiber reinforced pipes for low pressure for distribution, will burst because the pressure exceeds, because there are pumping and so many things involved. And during construction, and we have to test, in some places it bursts, we have to re-excavate and lay the pipeline again. So whenever there was such problems, we used to go and tell Swami. Now he says, go tomorrow, it will not burst. I mean, you cannot explain this in a scientific way, but it all happened in such a way that in such a short time, 1 year is practically the work, the other things in another 6 months, everything was organized to deliver in sustained way the water. So, I think with this project, for example, this is the way the canal lining was done, and ultimately it came to this shape in two ends. There's no lining, but this is stone revetment. The line canal you can see. It was what it was before and what was there in the previous picture it was shown. So there were regulators on the way, because as the water comes from the source or the dam, there are people on the way who want it for irrigation. Otherwise they will agitate. So we created regulators like this, and we created water can be taken for irrigation. This dam was repaired in such a way 17 TMC capacity was increased to 58 TMC, and water was flowing in 1.5 days from 160 kilometers away to Madras. Whereas earlier it used to take 2.5 months for something to trickle. So that was a complete transformation, and Madras city has got now practically 24/7 water supply, even though they do it in a regulated way. Some of these are the pictures of the pipelines and other project details. Now, this is a museum. The architect was, this is intended for explaining about the creation. Swami has explained how creation has happened right through the ages, some sort of a evolution of this creation and development of humankind. It is a museum for that. The architect was Malaysian Chinese, and so he has provided a Chinese roof. We built it in concrete to make it look like Chinese roof. And on the sides, there are some titanium domes. There is something underground. It is in a rocky area. We are not supposed to blast because it's close to living areas. We found techniques to excavate in rock without disturbing the local population. Sorry. This is Sai Kulwant Hall. That's where about 25 to 30,000 people assemble. This was done in 2-3 stages, but it is just like a open hall. I think some of you might have seen. It was built very fast again. It's a place where now Swami's Samadhi is also there. This is a project in Hyderabad. We constructed a Kalyana Mandapam where marriages and common functions can be held. It is a 50-meter diameter structure. It is a unique design with shells and what is called a compression ring. And we have won an international award for new ideas in concrete. And with so little concrete, with 7 centimeters thick shells, we could build that. So it won an award in Washington Congress of FIB, Fédération du Béton, which this building won. And this is the hospital, which I already explained. This is, and you could see that it is Buckingham Palace architect, Dr. Critchlow, has created a building like that, and inside we have to make a functioning hospital. And all that has been done very efficiently within 8 months practically, which is unbelievable. And there's the inside dome. This water tank, what you see here, is from our house magazine. Swami took out one. It's a Spanish design, some 16th century in masonry. We built it in concrete to a different capacity, of course, but he wanted that shape. So he was taking, what I'm trying to convey is taking interest in every little aspect. doctors' quarters, nurses' quarters, each ward, operation theatres, everything he was discussing. These are the type of columns we have in that hospital. It is like in the previous hospital, like in this shape, as though it's caring for the human being in plan. This is the hospital in Whitefield with 300 beds. This was also completed in 11 months construction. These are various views of the Whitefield Hospital. This has also got a central area, like so many domes. It looks like a Indo-European architecture. This is an indoor games stadium. When the university completed 25 years, Swami wanted to give students something. So there is a big stadium outside with outdoor games. So he wanted us to create an indoor stadium. And this was built in a very short time to play basketball, volleyball, gymnastics, table tennis, all types of badminton and other games, and tennis courts outside. All this was created in an incredible 126 days. I mean, it is unbelievable, but it is true. And the cost, I don't think anywhere in the world you can do it cheaper than this cost of just 19 crores of rupees. If you convert at that time's US dollar value, maybe 4 million US dollars. Unbelievable. This is how there's a space trust which was executed first. And at that time we didn't think of any false ceiling. Swami said, cover up. I don't want to see this. And we have to redesign with the false ceiling load and take care of all this. And this job, when it was being constructed again, there was such a tight target. The President of India were to come and inaugurate. And the last minute, one beam where Swami and other important people will look to the audience, there's one beam hiding a little bit of it. And so then naturally all of us and the trust officials felt that obstruction should be removed. If you remove that beam, the whole thing can collapse. But then we thought about it and we found a solution. Some central part of that beam which is coming in the way was removed and restored, and it looks even better than what it was before. This is another project where we had to create a dormitory accommodation for 900 people in each of such blocks. There's a bunk beds with toilet facilities, WCs and bathrooms and wash basins, all that in one block, and this was constructed using precast concrete elements. So everything is done in a rural environment. Concrete elements were manufactured in a side casting yard, and ultimately they were erected to bring it to the shape. And in the staircase elements were cast vertically and then erected. So it becomes very fast that way. And coming back to this, there is another, on the top floor for assembly, there's no central columns and we had a shell roof, which is again precast concrete elements. This is the part of a university in Muddanahalli campus. We built one clock tower and what is called Senate Hall with some exhibition also on the top of a hill. So to reach this place, we had to create a spiral, sort of a road. So that looks in plan, if you see in the drawing, as though you see from the air, Adishesha supporting this building. It is a college campus. These are various views of that. This happens to be our own office building of Lasan and Tubro in Madras. Swami was very impressed with this building. And it so happened, along with the other building I showed, this building got an award for outstanding concrete structure in the world because it is resting only on only 4 supports, and the whole thing is inverted pyramid, and this floor is what is called pre-stressed. The floor at this level is pre-stressed, and it is a unique design in concrete. So this also got an award, and I believe all this is happening. There are so much wonderful constructions all over the world. Why should this get an international award? And I believe it is Swami's grace which brought us this honor. So in all these projects, especially the water project, what has happened is a non-governmental organization led the way in showing that success of all endeavor and depends on unity, purity and divinity. Everybody worked together. When we cut across the fields for the pipelines, nobody objects. I mean, it never happens. They'll go to court otherwise. So why? Because the local people will get benefited, and everybody understood that. And even though we compensated for the crop lost, they have been so very cooperative that unity and purity is the essence of success. And divinity automatically supports when there is a united effort by humanity. I think this is what I wanted to convey. But I also have a set of pictures, but I think I have taken a lot of time. It's already 3:30. Even this is good enough. But if you want to see some more pictures, I've got, I am receiving an award in Washington for that building. So I can show you some pictures if you give 5-10 minutes more. Okay? Yes. Thank you. Just, can you? You know what is copied from a CD-ROM? Huh? We produced a book called Service to Man is Service to God at the 85th birthday of Swami, and all the jobs undertaken for Swami's social service works were recorded here. So I wanted to show a few more pictures. This is a picture where Swami was visiting the site. This is a design office building of the same organization. This is at the time of honoring. You can see at the background, I think two people can notice. This is Mr. Kondalrao. These are, I think I will not spend time except to show you some pictures. This is Swami's mother. This is a coffee table book. I'll send you more copies, but I brought an electronic copy. This is the university campus. Swami's style of project management. I have described how it happens. These are all university buildings. This is the hospital. Chaitanya Jyoti Museum, Swami inspecting the various proposals given by us. This is also in Chaitanya Jyoti, Perspectives of Divine Construction. Those are the housings, South Block 7. This one. I was telling. This is the Hanuman statue, 65 feet tall on the top of a hill. And this is the Angavastram, which is carrying that additional load. This one. Because this is a hill which is supposed to be carrying. This is an airport which we constructed, believe it or not, in 3.5 months. And then the devotees started pouring in from all parts of the world. And it so happened, when we were doing this, the hot mix plant got dislocated, or it did not function. So our man in charge went to that corner where he sits, and Swami passes by. He told Swami, 7 days it is not working. Within this 3.5 months, then he said, today you go, it will start functioning. And he did something and it started functioning. This is canteens, book trust building. This canteen was built when Swami went to Kodaikanal and came back. Within those 3 months, it's a long canteen, some of you would have noticed, all because of precasting and certain methods we used. We can build Such a long canteen in a very short time. 2,000 people at a time can be served. And again, women's section is separate. And it is all done in, even Swami discussed the table in which people will sit, how it should be convenient. We used on the seat a normal eating plate in stainless steel. We reversed it and put it as a seat. It's convenient and so easy to clean. Boys' hostel, Hillview Stadium. Cricket matches were played with international players here. Sai Kulwant Hall. This had a facility for this roof to be moved with a polycarbonate roof so that the lighting and ventilation is ensured. It has also facilities for parking cars under the part of the ground floor, shopping center, book trust building. The music college, the music instruments became a part of the architecture. Yeah, you can see. Actually, there is a drum here, tabla, and that has a staircase inside. There is a tabla having staircase inside. The Sathya Nigamagamam, where Narasimha Rao inaugurated Prime Minister. He did not think he would become Prime Minister. It was accidental, everybody thought also. He addressed him as Sarvabhauma, Narasimha Sarvabhauma. So, everything happened in such a way, he becomes Prime Minister. So it is his blessing. And it has got 2,000 seating capacity in some sort of a opera mode. It's a very popular hall, and this people can get at a very cheap price of 15,000 rupees a day, which is equivalent to $30? $300, yeah. $300 per day, rental. Chaitanya Jyoti Museum, which I explained. So that's again interesting museum. One can learn a lot of things about creation. The Chinese roof, super speciality hospital, yes. You already heard the story. In this, another aspect I can tell is, I was discussing the drawings with Swami along with another, the three foreign gentlemen who are associated with the hospital, plus one Colonel Jogarao. Swami was explaining and discussing everything in Telugu language, which is my mother tongue as well. And the meeting was over after about an hour. And then Swami left. Then I was apologizing to the foreign gentleman. Sorry, he spoke in Telugu, and probably I will explain everything again. They said, we didn't understand one word of Telugu, but we understood everything. Swami has communicated what he was conveying to me. These are the hospital pictures. Water towers. This is the Whitefield Hospital in Bangalore. The greatest part of this hospital is when you go inside, the patients are very happy. There's some faith or whatever you may say, and the attention of the doctors and nurses with love and care is so unique and different from commercial hospitals that they feel half cured moment they enter this hospital. There's a unique experience. This is, of course, the indoor stadium. Sai Bhaktanivas is what I explained to you. This is how the top roof is, and this is the type of beds. And at the end of this building, there is another block which has got washing and WC facilities. So each can hold 920 people. And 5 such blocks was built in 5 months altogether. There's the inside courtyard. This is that. It is, I happened to visit afterwards. Then somebody there who's looking after this told me that Swami came in dream and told that room is having too low a temperature, the air conditioning, and they have to adjust. As though he's living there. And it was a surprise for them, and they adjusted all those things. And it is an interesting place to visit. That is, in that building, now it is called Anandam. That is at this place. All open, it is open. So the idea was that people who come there can see beautiful hills called Nandi Hills from there. Yeah, you can see from there. So it's all hills, and behind there's a huge hill. And to reach that, probably you can see it here. There is a spiral. The road is like a spiral. Yeah, you can see it here. It is a university campus. Water for all. I think this we have seen in detail. So I will send you copies of these books for some of you to have it. I think I'll close it at that. So, thank you very much. I have not spoken to you anything spiritual really, but Swami in action. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Sai Ram.
I'm sure you'll all agree that was an inspiring narration of what Swami's grace and human effort can do. He didn't mention one thing, I'm sure, out of his immense humility, but on Mahasivratri day 2006, apparently he was sitting on the veranda and Swami came to him all of a sudden and just told him, "Be ready." And he didn't know what it meant, but a few minutes later, his sterling service was recognized by our beloved Swami, who blessed him with a new car on that day. Yes. And I also wish to acknowledge the presence of Sri Kondalarau's son and daughter-in-law, and his father also received a car on that day. So thank you very much, sir. And we will conclude with Mangala Arati. I request Sri Ramakrishna ji and Mrs. Ramakrishna ji to please offer.